Well, hello and welcome to another LinkedIn Live Q&A interview where I'm delighted to be joined by Tony Robinson, OBE, aka the Happipreneur, the UK's biggest micro business champion. What other plaudits and accolades going to give you? There's
No,
many.
keep it going. Just I'm loving it, Paul. Keep going, keep going. Happy Happypreneurship Day, by the way.
Oh yeah,
Did you know it was Happypreneurship Day today?
isn't every day Happypreneurship Day?
That's it. You got it. You're a genius. You're brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. You'll go far. You.
So so the Happypreneur. Well, a lot of people will know you for all the great work that you've been doing for many years to champion and support micro businesses. For anyone that doesn't know what a micro business is, do you want to give a quick definition of what a micro business is?
Yeah, there's 5.7 million of them in the UK, and it's from 0 to 9 employees. That's the simplest definition. So that includes 70% of people are actually working from home. And I think that's really important to remember. And 90 odd percent are actually with just one or two employees or no employees at all. The majority have no employees. And one of the things people forget is that how much of all the innovation, creativity, all the new jobs created, all the good things come from these really micro. People talk about them as tiny businesses, but they're actually incredibly important. That's where all the good stuff actually comes from. All the looking after our environments. They're the best bosses when they do take on staff. No, seriously, they're really important group, but they get forgotten about because they are that small that the government don't see them as serious businesses.
Yeah, and I think that's really important to mention. I mean, that's why I remember when I first heard about that through you and
Yeah,
and Tina Bowden, who
yeah, sure.
can maybe mention a little bit about, but
Yeah,
definitely you. I wasn't aware of this. Why it was so important to focus on micro businesses because government and other organisations always talk about SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises, but
yeah,
an SME is up to 250 employees.
yeah,
And a
absolutely.
250 employee company is completely different to a one person or a two person or a nine person company or even a just a single
Yeah,
freelancer.
absolutely.
So it is important to specify that there is a difference and that the needs of a micro business are very different, and that's something that you have been really good at shining a light on that and trying to give a voice to those
Yeah,
smaller ones.
and I think Paul, that one of the things we've discussed many times is the fact that um, growing organically is incredibly important,
Mhm.
um, and all the startups, well, maybe one or two, but I reckon all the startups, let's say 800,000 a year,
Mhm.
are micro businesses.
Mhm.
And if we've got to champion them because we've got to create the environment for those 800,000 businesses to actually, thrive in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they need an even break at the beginning. And so
Mhm.
that's what we've got to do. Everybody that understands, how great it is to be enterprising in your own business
Mhm.
has got to help others so that they can survive that tricky 18 months or 3 years. But they're all micro business owners, so it's a hugely important group.
Yeah. Well, I'm doing this from the Tuss Park Barclays Eagle Lab co-working space in Newcastle,
Great.
where fingers crossed you're going to be giving a live talk in at the end of November for
Not
the next.
only fingers crossed, I'll
Well,
be
well,
there.
you are going to be
I've booked my hotel. I've
there.
booked my train tickets, and it's going to be fantastic. I've got a new fantastic opening. I sing it.
Okay, right. We're going to do that on the Friday the 26th of November. So if people want to come along to that, then put that date in your diary. But the reason I mentioned that is this place, this co-working space,
Yeah,
it's full of micro businesses. It's full
correct.
of one person, two person, three person companies
Yeah,
at the smallest, but actually end of the scale, but really innovative.
yeah,
Uh, work that they're doing here, really important work that they're doing here, and it's such a great environment to be in. And I love being in this sort of place, and I've been based here since 2018, and even longer. I've been hanging out in co-working spaces and hot desking spaces where this innovation happens. So I just thought I'd mention that. So
they're so important, aren't they, Paul? I mean, just stick on that. The thing is that we've got to work together as a community. Nobody else is going to help us. We're not going to get any external help. Yeah. And so therefore, it's not only important that we all, shout out about how important micro businesses are, but it's important that we all get together in networking meetings. Brad's great at that, isn't it? Brad Burton, and of course you've met like people like Charlie Mullins and Kanye King CBE and Mobo Awards and all these people were micro businesses and they all understand that unless we give them an even break, unless we work together, I call it business buddies rather than mentors and various things. We need loads of other micro business buddies. So, we want to tell everybody, go out and get some business buddies tomorrow and help each other. Yeah, great.
Yeah, because it's probably an overused word, but the word community, there are lots of communities. There's online communities, there's in-person communities, and that's something I've been trying to do, build communities or support startup micro business communities over the last 5.5 years through my own business, but before that as well, in other roles as well. And they're often very loose communities. People are free to come and go. They don't belong to my community, but they choose to be part of that community, and people tend to come together around shared interests and common purposes. And definitely, I think that's something I'm proud of. I've managed to do a good job of creating spaces and platforms for people to come together to promote themselves in a way that's inclusive and accessible to anyone, really.
But isn't that the bit that we all like? I mean, what do you find the difference between like a formal networking? What are the positives of the differences between the informal networking that you've created, even at your startup week, and that we all do, shared interests, different days, pivot day, startup day, various things, against these, small business membership type formal networking groups, which usually start with a little pitch at the beginning as to what's the difference? What do you think the benefits are of each one?
I mean, I would say this one it's biased, but I think just the vibe is, I'm very informal in my style anyway, in my delivery, and very. Some people, there's a friend of mine who's a speaking coach, and he said, you're great when you give a talk. You're very laid back and informed. The downside to that is people don't necessarily realize that you're in charge. But I don't think of myself as in charge. I'm the facilitator. I'm the one who's like, the audience is the star. The people. Whereas I think maybe the formal networking events, it's really about them, and their interests.
Yeah, I like that. I love that. I love that, Paul.
But
I think that's right.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't want to criticize anybody, but I would say that, in all my experience, things like your Newcastle Startup Week, even the evening events that we had, do you know what I mean, are much, much more. I mean, I've met, I don't know, maybe 100 people at your Newcastle Startup Weeks that I'm now in touch with, if you like, and I now communicate with. But it's not about trying to get business off each other. It's about learning and understanding and being signposted to somebody else and things like that. And that doesn't happen in these groups where they say, well, we'll have one recruitment agency, we'll have one insurance person, we'll have, do you know what I mean? That's all about getting leads, and I'm not sure about it, really. I think your way is much better, because the other way is a bit arrogant, isn't it? It's about like, Sir Early, I'm all in favor of enterprise facilitation rather than, advice, which is not looking down, nothing top down, I know more than you kind of thing. It's all about actually finding out what somebody actually wants. And then, you know, you're the super connector, you know more about it than I do, but then you signpost people to where they can then go depending on what they want to do. Is that what you think? Do you agree with that?
Yeah. Well, again, that's something I've always tried to do. Is I mean, it's buzzwords and stuff, but that whole customer centric, you know, approach of like, whenever someone asks me for help or advice, I'm always like, well, what do they actually need? What do they want? Like, the focus is on them, not what I need. It seems obvious, but it's not obvious. Not everybody operates that way. So
it's a good thing to have in your mind, though. The we is more important than the I. That's one of the things that I try to get across in the Happipreneur. Who wants to be a Happipreneur show? Because I think that, you know, we started with this community and things. I think if everybody's into trying to build communities, and the we is more important than the I, even that if that we is just family and friends and starting from there, you know, that we is the most important in your life, then you know, you will get fulfillment and happiness coming back. If you start from the I, you can make as much money in the world. You can be the nastiest bastard in the world, you know, really trampling on people to be as successful as you can. But it's surprising how few of those people actually achieve any happiness. That's why they actually go for unlimited growth, because all they know about is accumulating more and more things. Whereas the we type people actually get the joy of, well, our friendship and all the things that we've shared over the last number of years.
It's like Trump, isn't it? You know, Trump. I mean, I'm not. He's the epitome of that, isn't he? Like, I mean,
he's the I.
I've never read.
He's fronted 2 MLM companies. He's, you know, he doesn't care about 1,000 lawsuits against him. Right.
He always wants to win at all costs. Like, it's never
just winning.
How can we both win? It's how can he win and how can he?
It's just winning.
And then even though he's winning, he's still not happy, is he? So.
No, absolutely. And I mean, and you know, what kind of existence is it? I mean, apparently, you know, I read Steve Bannon's book about him, and he's in bed with his laptop tweeting away, or when he was allowed to tweet, but you know, he's in bed with a hamburger and his laptop at 9 o'clock. You know. It's madness.
He's definitely not a Happipreneur. So let's talk about the Happipreneur and what it means to be a Happipreneur, and about your book as well. So you've got a book out, a brilliant book. So it's the Happipreneur: Why Microbiz Matters.
Thank you.
Encourage everybody to buy it, because it is a great book, and it's part biography, but also lots of lessons learned through your long and distinguished career of going from riches to rags, which I love the way you talk about that. So so just in a nutshell, if you can, talk about what it means to be a Happipreneur.
Yeah, well, I think
why you wrote the book.
I think the important thing about the book is really trying to say to people, we really use Taryn Lee Johnson. I really use my story as to how I found Happypreneurship, and you know, it's the show is about. The fact is that I am a Happypreneur at the moment, and I have been for the last 10 or 12 years, even though I've been running my own business for 35 years. It's only the last 10 or 12 years that I can honestly say, first thing to think about a Happypreneur is that I'm happy 80% of the time or above. You know, which is quite a good thing. And I nicked that from a guy called Henry Stewart, who is a professional colleague. He's called Mr. Happy. He's also got this fantastic line. He finishes his show, Paul, with, "I'm Henry, I'm happy, and I hope you are too." Fantastic. You know, it's great. But anyway, Henry Stewart and I, for 30 years or so, have been professionally interested in happiness in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
And his definition of happiness in the workplace is if you do a survey, that you actually find that your staff are happy 80% of the time. Yeah. So now the reality is that the reason more people are happy running their own enterprise is that 70% of people in the workplace, employees, feel under stress and not very happy.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got a long, long way to go in workplaces, in companies,
Yeah.
if you like. But
Yeah.
if you're running your own business, then it reverses and a lot more people are happy. But to get to that level of being happy the majority of the time at work, because happypreneurs don't retire, remember, Paul, it's the difference between, what they say about entrepreneurs is that you work hard for about 10 years or whatever it is so that you can play for the rest of the time. Well, happypreneurs don't do that, because the first thing about happypreneurs is they love controlling their own destiny, and they love what they're doing because they're really good at what they're doing, and that makes them feel very happy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, the book is about showing all the people that actually taught me, all the entrepreneurs, all the people about. Remember, you can be enterprising in a job as well. You can be a happypreneur in a job. Nothing wrong with that. You can have a side hustle, etc. But it really is about controlling your own destiny and making ends meet, because everybody's got to make a living. Through being enterprising. And happiness is a difficult thing to describe, but we do that in the show because it's kind of a feeling. It's about contentment. It's about fulfillment. You can't be a happy person at work if, for example, you've got to put on a mask at work and you can't be yourself. Does that make sense? The happypreneur is authentic, if you like. And it's all really about values. And I think the great thing about the book is that it allows Taryn and I to show off and you've contributed to the book, and that's great. And we're able to show off all the people that I've learnt. I'm nearly 70. It's my 70th year doing these 70 shows and 70 walks. And it allows us to show off all the people I've either read or I've met and worked with and got to know by asking questions that have helped me on that journey to become a happypreneur.
Yeah, amazing. Well, like I say, I would encourage anyone watching this to buy a book, not only because it's a great book, but also you mentioned it there. You turn 70 next year, so it's your 70th birthday in September.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
September next year. I can't believe you're that old.
Yeah.
And in your 70th year, you've decided over 12 months, you want to try and do 70 talks in 70 towns. Ideally it would be in person, but we're doing virtual ones as well. Virtual ones as well. So 70 talks in 70 different locations, basically.
Yeah.
And the idea is to get the message out about happypreneurship to as many people as possible. And then the royalties from your book sales, you're going to donate that money to charity. We'll talk about that, to a good cause, Excluded UK. And any fees, any payments that you would normally receive for articles, paid articles, speaking gigs.
Everything really, Paul. Everything really, and collecting donations as well, as much as I can.
Exactly, that's really generous of you to do that, and you want to do that to Excluded UK. And you want to explain a bit more about Excluded UK and what?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you. I'm doing the 70 runs for Macmillan Cancer Support,
well.
but the whole momentum of the whole thing is, as you've said, is by next September, October, to have done 70 shows to raise money for Excluded UK. 3 million people were excluded from income support throughout this pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to be cheerful all the time. We are, but there are a lot of people that were very proud of their businesses, that were happypreneurs that have hit a very dark place, if you like. And if we can raise just some money so that we can give them small grants, which we call boost grants, that gives them maybe, a small amount of money to buy broadband again. They've had to sell their houses, cars, business equipment, everything in order to live. So if they can get just a small grant from Excluded UK, and we've helped raise the money for those small grants, it can get them a laptop, it can get them some broadband for a year, it can give, but more importantly than what they actually choose to do with that grant, it gives them hope. It could be the first step on the ladder to becoming a happypreneur again, kind of thing. I mean, a lot of them have had to take jobs, and there is nothing wrong with that. But even the people that have taken jobs, they really want to keep their enterprises going as a side hustle and things like that. So these boost grants are great. And so come to the shows. Paul's arranging one in Newcastle. There's a massive big virtual one on December the 7th, which everybody can attend. They're all free. They've all been free up to now anyway, but we encourage donations to all these things. So my website's TonyRobinsonOBE.com, and you can check out anytime where I am or what we're doing if you like. But it's a really important job. I mean, I feel a bit guilty because I've had a wonderful time since I was sent back from Malta because they took it very seriously in terms of containing infections, which we didn't bother with. And so I was sent back from Malta, and when I got back, I found that my daughter was here. So I've got my daughter and 2 sons and my wife. And so we've all had a pretty marvelous time. And I am a happypreneur as well. So I've had lots of creative things to do to keep me going. And you do feel a bit guilty when you know the amount of suffering that a lot of people have. So I'm really pleased to be doing what I can for this next year. Yeah.
Yeah, no, well, it's you should be applauded for it, because you don't need to do this, but it is just another example of how you do tirelessly campaign for the little guy and gal. You want to support the small businesses, the micro business owners. I mean, the thing on the small grants, right? I don't even know this, but like last year, I felt a bit of, because I've got the network around the Startup Week event, and I've got people on my mailing list, and I thought, well, what can I do? So there was a period where I felt it was my role to try and share the latest updates on what was going on around COVID support. So I was doing that, and I was I could see the stats for the website and the blogs and the emails were really high, because people were isolated and didn't really know what was going on. But one thing I did do as well was I did a little survey myself. No one asked me to do this. I just did a little survey of people and asked them how they were getting on, and how much money, like how much longer they could keep going without any more money coming in.
Yeah.
Right. And also how much money they needed to keep going. Right.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the exact number, but it was a couple of hundred people, I think, did this survey across the 7 northeast councils. Right.
It's a good survey.
And in that, people were saying like a month, 2 months, 3 months, and then they were going to run out of money. But the amount of money that they needed wasn't a lot of money. It was like some people needed a lot, but most people it was a few hundred quid, maybe 500 quid, 300 quid, 1,000. It wasn't huge amounts of money. So I passed that information on to all of the councils and said, look, here's some people here that might not be on your radar. So can you cross-check it with who is on your radar? And they did do that, and there were people on there that they didn't even know existed. And I think, well, I do know they did give out some small grants to them, right?
Good.
But more of that stuff needs to happen, doesn't it? Because it's
the
onus seemed to be that money was going out. Like the councils were doing a good job of getting money out the door, but it was to the people who were already known to them, and a lot of the businesses that didn't really need the money.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and the other thing is pride as well. Paul, the thing to remember about the majority of the 3 million is that probably none of them have ever used a food bank before.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, that hits them hard. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But um, when you run your own business, the truth is, well, is this the truth? You tell me. Um, in order to get business, you can't be a miserable old sod. You've got to pretend everything is
Yeah.
fine, haven't
Yeah.
you?
Yeah.
So you're actually used to, always putting a smile on your face and always pretending or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a big difference to actually go to, the government actually knew, Paul, what your survey said,
Mm-hmm.
which is that all adults in the UK, including the 5.7 million micro business owners, on average are only 6 weeks loss of income
Mm-hmm.
away from a debt problem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's all it takes. Now,
Yeah.
obviously, the lockdowns where they got no income at all amounted to more than 6 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
and we found exactly the same thing as your survey in Hull. Fortunately, I'm patron of something called John Cracknell Youth Enterprise Bank, and through a Chinese entrepreneur and a number of other things, and we're always raising funds for it. We give these small grants,
Mm-hmm.
usually to the younger,
Mm-hmm.
uh, uh, newly self-employed people. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, they were all excluded as well because they hadn't been trading long enough.
Mm-hmm.
And these grants are only between 250 and 500 quid, but they were lifesavers.
Yeah. Yeah.
They
Yeah.
were absolutely lifesavers for the young enterprising people in Hull. So yeah, it's. I don't think government, that includes local government, are engaged with the communities we're talking about, Paul. Do
No.
you?
No. Not at all. And the small amount, yeah, and the small amounts of money that you're talking about there, I think it's good that you're calling them boost grants as well, because it does give people a little bit of a boost.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're not. It's not about them getting rich, is it? It's about them getting by often, but also it does give them a little bit of a boost, and it's nice to know that people are listening to them, taking notice of them, and giving them a little bit of support when no one else is doing that. That could be the difference between getting that extra, that mojo back, and
And
motivated.
yeah, absolutely. Mentally, it's a big thing because it's not a loan. I mean, like bounce
Yeah,
back loans, well, they'll be like, there'll be 50% defaulters of all those bounce back loans, but that's another headache. Every loan is like a mortgage, isn't it?
yeah,
Actually, it's another headache. Whereas a grant, even if it's a small amount of money, is not a headache. It's just a
yeah,
little boost, a little lift up. Yeah.
yeah. And there's not many grants out there at the minute. Like
No.
these days, there used to be a lot more, but not many grants around these days at all. So if anyone's listening to this and you're working for a big company, I I would love more big companies or even medium-sized companies to actually set aside some money to just give out as grants, because
Absolutely.
and not rely on the government to do it, and not rely on local government, national government, and not be too restrictive or prescriptive about where that money goes, because small amounts of money, small grants can be a big help to the micro business owners and freelancers. So yeah, if you're a big company or a medium-sized company that's doing well, I'd love to see more of you giving away some grants to some startups, micro businesses, freelancers. We need more of that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And at the end of the day, it's only going to benefit the medium and large companies, because at the end of the day, they will reap the benefits of the credibility that they've gained with the micro business community, which is good for business and good for sales.
Mhm.
And the other thing is that medium and large companies are always on the lookout for growing enterprises that
Mhm.
they can actually bring in to their organizations as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's really important that they fuel. if you like, all this enterprise and energy and creativity in the UK, because it'll only benefit them in the long run. That's great. Really appreciate that, Paul. Yeah.
Yeah, no, good. So if anyone wants to, well, buy a book, and your talks, they're not just entertainment. So if people are enjoying this talk, yeah, it's great if you're enjoying it. But buy the bloody book. Like Bob Geldof, give us the bloody money.
Yeah, give us your money.
Buy a book, and I don't know if this link is still correct or not, but I did have it written down. There was a link to donate directly to Excluded.
Yeah, if you go onto the excludeduk.org site, yeah, just Google Excluded UK, one word. You'll get to the Excluded UK.org site. There's 3 buttons on there. The button on the right-hand side, as you look at it, is the donate for these boost grants. So it's simple as that. It's great.
Yeah.
And every donation is so needed. You can imagine after the budget, we had to, Excluded UK people had to ramp up the mental health support, really, because, the headline wasn't it great for small businesses, a bit more help with rates and things. But as we said right at the beginning, is 70% of them are actually working from home, and they're faced with increased energy bills like crazy, and broadband, and all the basics of living are just going up at such a rate, and there was no help for any of them.
No, and it's like whack-a-mole, isn't it? Like one thing and then something else pops up, and
definitely
don't want to get too political, but like the government just seems to, not just this government, successive governments seem to just get it wrong every time, don't they, when it comes to the micro businesses and freelancers and the smaller end. Why is that? Is it just because
I think it's the world that they live in more than anything else. I mean, I don't like, apart from one, I don't really like calling that I wrote a protest video about. I don't really like calling people names, because I believe that the majority of politicians and the majority of people, the majority of large company chief executives that are exploiting micro business owners by paying them in 45 to 120 days. I don't actually believe they're evil people. I just think they're playing a game that is so different from what we would see as fair and as reasonable. That's different, and they are living in a bubble. So therefore, why is the cabinet all millionaires? I mean, I think there's only one that isn't. So why did they go into government in the first place? Well, they went into government for power and to make a lot more money. I mean, that's the honest truth of what is actually happening. So basically, they don't actually understand. You can see that when they mention things like universal credit or food banks. They don't actually understand what Lord Sugar and I and Charlie Mullins and everybody and Kanye King and even Sir Jim Ratcliffe, my schoolmate, who's a 19 billionaire, they don't actually understand the value of a pound. Does that make sense? They don't. They're living in a very privileged world, and they don't actually understand the effect of, I know that my gas and electricity bill for the last 12 months has been £1,800. I know that my gas and electricity bill for the next 12 months will be £2,860.
Wow.
Right?
Now,
they don't understand the impact of that on a family. They just don't understand it. So they're playing a totally different political game. And that's one of the reasons that, people like you and I, without being political, I agree with you. I think we've just got to keep calling out facts and various things. I mean, it's, let's say something really good. I mean, there's a lot of civil servants that are continually trying to educate ministers. And the new small business commissioner, the last two small business commissioners as well, have been right on our side. They speak to me, they talk to us, so there are some good people pitching for us out there. It's just that we need more people like you, Paul, that have always been willing to put your head above the parapet. And that's our problem, is that they see silence, and a lot of people are silent because they're scared, frankly. Or they're scared it's going to affect their business by speaking out, or whatever it happens to be. And they take that silence as acquiescence. So they'll have walked away from the budget thinking, God, didn't we do a great job there? But the reality is that it's tough for everybody trying to scrape a living through their own enterprise.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, no, thank you for saying that. I mean, I think one thing. I mean, I've said, I take great inspiration from you. Like everything that you've said, or things I've read from you, and like a voice in my head. Anytime I'm like, oh, what would Tony do in this situation? Regularly, I've had situations where I thought, what would Tony do? What would Tony say? Like, you are like my guiding light when it comes to business practices sometimes, right? But I think something that I really admire in you, and something I've tried to do is try to operate sort of outside the mainstream, or sort of
Yes. Yeah.
slightly anti-establishment, I would say.
Yeah.
But at the same time, not being confrontational or combative, because if you're going head to head and you're arguing and you're shouting, or people don't listen to you then. So you got to like get them to at least listen to what you're saying, and try to influence from within, or sometimes you do have to just be a bit more outspoken, and I know you have done that really well. But one thing I was going to say is your last talk that you did in South Shields with Charles Dickens. I loved it when you said, I know obviously about Charles Dickens, but I didn't know some of the things you said about Charles Dickens. I didn't know as much about him as I do now, but he was really good at embarrassing the people in power.
Yes,
Through
absolutely.
his works of art, his writing,
and that's the same with all great writers. You see, I mean, I've got. I mean, Charles Dickens isn't one of my favorite writers, but there is a reason that him and Shakespeare are regarded as the two greatest writers probably the world has ever seen. Tolstoy thought Dickens was the best writer the world has ever seen, for example. And the reason was that Dickens and all these writers, Leonard Cohen is somebody I absolutely admire tremendously. What they're trying to do, and what I'm trying to do, is actually influence change.
Yeah.
And as you say, by going up against it head against head, you don't do it. Dickens was able to make countless changes by the people saying, God, he's our people's champion. What he's saying is true. He understands people from the beggar or the prostitute, which he did. He used to visit prisons and various things regularly. So he understood everybody in society, right through to the the people that he would never join as a lord, like most like Thackeray, and most of his mates and contemporaries accepted peerages and various things as great writers. He would never do that. He only wanted to be buried as Charles Dickens. The country actually said they wanted to put him in Westminster Abbey in Poets' Corner, but his will specifically said, don't do that. I just want to be, but he influenced change from slavery to public hangings, for example, to fallen women charities that he created. But he did it really by portraying people as characters and doing things. And I always think of, that the Chester Carris's quote, because I'm big on negotiation as the key skill of an entrepreneur or a happypreneur or in life. And it's as you get in life, as you get in business, not what you ask for or want, but what you negotiate. And we've always, and Dickens and everybody else, our raison d'etre is always to get to the point whereby we're looking for a win-win negotiation at the end to get a deal. So I don't want to, it's made me very unpopular in the excluded UK community because I don't say what a horrible man the Chancellor is, for example, and I won't join those kind of protests with those kind of placards. Because one day I want to sit down with the Chancellor and I want to negotiate something that will help micro business owners across the UK. So I think you're absolutely right. I mean, when people ask me what is your superpower, then mine has always been win-win negotiation.
Yeah.
And and it's really important that we get to that point. You might not like the person that you're negotiating with, but at the end of the day, you've got to give them a win as well as get something yourself that actually counts. Yeah.
Love it. And then there's a quote which I forgot all about. What was about that you said about when he was counting the money and he was saying, can you remember what that was?
Oh, yeah, from Micawber, from David Copperfield. So, yes, annual income, £20, no shillings and no pence. Annual expenditure, £19, 19 and sixpence. Result, happiness. Annual expenditure, annual income, sorry, £20. Annual expenditure, £20, no shillings and sixpence. Result, misery.
That really resonated.
And that's absolutely true, isn't it? And that's why you made the point earlier on. It's that small amount of money that takes you down from happiness to misery.
Yeah, no,
I
thought that was really important that you said that because
avoiding debt is the really important value of a happypreneur. And I mean, you've got, you might think, oh, someone like Sir Jim Ratcliffe, £19 billion company and various things. He'll tell you he doesn't take risks. He knows that every company that he buys, every company he buys from BP or Shell or whatever, that he can knock 25% off the costs. Because they've got sloppy with the costs, they've got sloppy with the management, and he can increase the productivity and safety record of those plants. He knows that before he buys them. He's buying things that BP and Shell don't want. Charlie Mullins won't allow a banker on his premises at Pimlico Plumbers because he calls them crooks in suits. They'll lend you money, but they'll just as easily pull the rug from under your business as soon as you get into any problems. So avoiding debt is as important to a happypreneur as is doing something you love and you're really good at that customers will actually buy and give you some money for, controlling your own destiny. Putting family and friends first. This stuff about the we is more important than the I. A lot of this is counterintuitive, isn't it, with what you learn about entrepreneurship? But these are all the important things that will give you fulfillment, contentment, and happiness. But that avoiding debt is like probably my most controversial thing about being a happypreneur. But it's actually, it's like, I mean, I got rid of a year ago. I got rid of which I really miss because, I'm a sports nut. I mean, I'm, cricket, football, table tennis. I mean, I played them all and I love them all. And, but I had to get rid of BT Sport, Sky Sport, got rid of the loss because whatever it can, so I avoid debt and keep costs. I'm happy because I haven't got any debts. I moved to Scarborough 20 years ago because that got rid of my mortgage.
Yeah, exactly. And it's true, isn't it? Like if debt, exactly. It's one of the worst things ever.
You're thinking about it all the time. It's really difficult to be creative. I mean, it's like, it's and how you react to it is some people can react like Leonard Cohen did when he lost all his millions through fraud. After a very dark period, his friends and colleagues managed to persuade him, which he hated doing, but to go on tour, to get his money back. But he actually, because he was surrounded by family and friends, and he really was a tight-knit group, they edged him one by one. They said, at any point you can bail out of this, Leonard, whatever. And so he did incredible things to, like he had 16 dress rehearsals kind of in Canada and kind of thing. And he eventually did it. And the depression lifted, and he was like Charles Dickens and all the other great happypreneurs, actually doing something he loved, because it was the reaction from the we that became more important from the I. And it was the reaction from the audiences that kept him going. So to the end, he actually said, the depression lifted. I hope I'm still touring when I'm 80. And he did. He was still doing gigs when he was 80, and he'd absolutely hated it in his previous life. But, that debt situation is it can go either way, can't it, really?
Yeah.
But I think that's another reason why you don't do the stuff of like trampling on people kind of thing and saying, well, I've got to, I'm the average of the 5 people that I'm with. Well, I understand that. That's a good thing. But don't make it the 5 wealthiest people I'm with. Yeah. Make it with the 5 people I trust the most to be with. Yeah.
Yeah, I've just seen a comment just come in there from Alfie Joy saying very inspiring, and your advice on avoiding debt is excellent. It's about living within your means as well as working within your means. And
that's fantastic. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, sometimes people just do get into debt, and there's not, there's no shame in that. But
no.
if you can avoid it, definitely do that. And there's definitely too many people encouraging startups and small business owners and freelancers to get into debt, to take out loans unnecessarily that they've got no chance of repaying. But that definitely seems to be the de facto advice for a lot of business advisors or government officials or certain people in positions of power or influence to encourage businesses to get into debt.
Yes, and what and the reason is, I think everybody's got to understand that it's they're playing a game. At the end of the day, their job is to make money. So they're looking for the gazelles and the unicorns out in the future, if you like, and they're not interested in businesses doing, just making ends meet, which I think is absolutely great. Making ends meet in your own business, and Tim Campbell on The Apprentice, my friend from The Apprentice and various people, and Kanye King and everybody, we all think it's absent. Charlie Muns, we all think it's absolutely great. Your goal is to make ends meet for your friend, for you and your family, and various things, and that's a great goal for enterprise. But a lot of the the financial services industry, their job is to actually hope that by them giving you some money, that you will actually become bigger and bigger and a bigger and better client for them, and they'll make more and more money out of you, and that's the way it goes. We're not saying don't take a loan. But we are saying, for example, a startup shouldn't take a loan until they know it's not going to plunge them into debt, which means test trading first, that you've got a lot of customers first. You like Jim Ratcliffe, if you buy that thing, you can get a return on your investment so quickly that you never get into debts and problems. So we're not saying don't do it, but don't do it on their terms. It's like, what is a business plan? A business plan is actually a CV for a banker, a funder, or a shareholder or investor, really. It's something that gives them an idea whether they're going to, I love gambling, Paul. I always keep lots of chips on my desk. So, but that's what they're actually doing. They're actually putting a bunch of chips on your business, if you like. Yeah. But the beauty of it is that the bank always wins. So they always get their chips back. Yeah. and you end up in a really bad situation. But if you're gambling, then always never go all in your own enterprise. That's another thing. I saw Thea Paphitas said that the other day, which I was like so pleased about. Because the other thing is that, what was that, fail fast, fail faster stuff that people say. You learn, you won't if you've got into debt, mate. You'll really struggle to get out of that hole, I tell you. It's never go all in, never put it all on the table. Keep a couple of chips back so that you can try something else.
Yeah, well, I'm not a gambler, but I guess it's like gambling. Like, don't bet what you can't afford to lose.
It is exactly that, Paul. Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
And I mean, as we say, the fastest way to actually avoid debt is the bit that most academics and entrepreneurship, that those most well, certainly all the banks and the government agencies, even your accelerators and incubators and various won't talk about. They won't say the most important thing, which is when you're putting together your survival budget pre-start, reduce every cost that you can to the absolute minimum. Get rid of all those subscriptions, get rid of all the things that you don't. There's going to be 1,000,001 people selling you stuff and saying, buy this, you'll need this for your business. What can you have secondhand? What can you do? What can you pay monthly? I had when I was managing director, chief executive of Amway, I had a massive car. I don't know anything about cars, but it's a bloody massive car. It was absolutely fantastic. When we started our own business, Claire and I, she actually did a deal with a company for a beat up old second-hand car on a monthly lease. Yeah, when we were paying that, rather because the business wasn't going to be able to afford it in the first 18 months, paying for a decent car, and neither could we afford a couple of £1,000 even, but we could pay £100 a month.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So I think it's really important that you probably don't listen to all the people that are pushing you up to over it. It's like, Amway ended up in court. Lord Mandelson says they were selling unachievable dreams. Yeah, and Herbalife been fined 400 million or whatever in the US. I mean, still operating. They're all operating very successfully all over the world. But the point is that if it looks too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people trying to inspire you and motivate you with the big stuff, whereas I say, get your survival budget as low as you can, cut your costs before you start.
Yeah, well, that's something I've always tried to do, but I definitely did it regularly, reviewed it, and earlier this year I did it again. I just looked at every outgoing, both business and personal, and just created a really basic spreadsheet as well, just with the amounts and the exact date that the money went out as well, so I could see at a glance exactly what I really needed and what I didn't need, and I cut quite a bit.
What was an example of something you cut, Paul, that you?
I mean, one thing I did do, LinkedIn. I had a LinkedIn premium subscription,
I cut mine as well.
which I did use it, but it's expensive. It was like 40 odd pound a month, and all the things I was paying, that was definitely one of the most expensive. And I had other subscriptions to certain bits of software that I wasn't really using that much. And you can convince yourself you need it because in one day I'll use it, but if you've just got to cut right down, and unless you absolutely need it. Just a few other things as well. I can't remember them all, but I had quite a frugal lifestyle anyway. I'm not.
Yeah. What would you say has been, in the years that you've been running your own business, Paul? What would you say is the thing that because you're a business advisor, weren't you? And I mean, you know, even when you were in Sage, you were still in contact with lots of micro business owners and various things. So, you know, you really understand micro business owners incredibly well, and I'm incredibly grateful to you always for having, you know, made Micro Biz Matters Day a big success. So we should just mention that 8th Micro Biz Matters Day, 2-day Micro Biz Matters Festival, 24th and 25th of March 2022. So we should just mention, but so, you know, you've always been in touch with you know, real micro business owners and various things, but I bet you there's some things that still surprised you about people that said running a business is about this than the reality for you about running a business. You know, tell us about that. I mean, I can think of loads of them. I've been talking far too much, but what are the things that have, like, you know, because I think that's really important for happypreneurship is like, there are some things that will set us back, and we've kind of got to prepare for those things. So what are some of the surprises that you didn't actually, you know, it could be things that happened in your personal life that affected your business life. It could be some things that the government did. It could be some, you know, what is it that you know, you never anticipated, even though you had this fantastic understanding of micro business owners?
Oh, that's a big question, isn't it?
It's a huge question, but I think it's really one of the things about happypreneurship is, remember, is learn how to avoid setbacks and put downs and, you know, all the obstacles, if you like. Learn how to deal with them in advance, kind of them happening, really.
Yeah, I've written down like we were going to talk about it anyway, about resilience, you know, and perseverance.
Well, it is that, yeah.
I think that's something I've been good at, is and also, you know, and you know, I know you're stoic. I'm into stoicism. You know,
it's good.
I didn't realize you were until I read your book, actually. But it makes perfect sense. But that understanding that really it doesn't matter what other people say or do, and bad things will happen in the world. But what really matters is how you respond to them, if at all. And at the end of the day, you decide how you respond, and if at all, and how it's going to affect you. And that's something that's definitely helped me. I didn't realize I thought that way until I got into stoicism at the end of last year. Beginning of last year. But definitely during the lockdown, realizing how important that is, like my attitude to things, how important that is. And when you are the business, you know, when you are a solo entrepreneur, or solo business owner, or freelancer, micro business owner, how much business can affect your personal life, or your personal life can affect your business life. And if you're out of balance, it can really affect things. So you will wobble, you know, things will happen, but to try and get that stability back as quickly as possible, because it can really knock you back and affect things. And I know that personally, I have it, or had a tendency, if things weren't going particularly well, if I felt like I was doing all the right things, but I still wasn't getting the sale, or my head could go down sometimes, and I could go a bit inward and go a bit quiet. Because I'm like, I don't know what's going on, how to get out of this. But actually, the best thing for me in that situation is to get out there, is to actually talk to people, hang around, talk to someone like you, talk to someone that I can bounce ideas off, who can inspire me, motivate me. I can give energy to, you can give energy to me, and actually just getting busy doing what I love doing always turns it around for me. So just instead of dwelling on the things that aren't going well, to just get busy doing the things that I love doing always turns it around. And every time I've done, I know that now, that every time things aren't going to plan, I just need to get busy doing what I love doing, and it always improves every time.
Well, that's it. That's you've just hit the, you know, that value again of a happypreneur, haven't you? You know, doing something that you actually love and do well really is the core, isn't it? And so if you get back to that, and I think that's absolutely right about I mean, I used to be, you know, Claire will tell you more than anybody, but for the first 15 years in our business, I could go on a right old sulk. You know, I mean, really, I could like, you know, I mean, in the end, one of the reasons that we decided not to have any staff anymore was when we had a couple of staff that we both thought were friends of ours that we brought into business, and they kind of like poisoned the atmosphere.
Mhm.
Now, my reaction at those kind of times was to go into a real sulk about it all. You know, how can they do all this to me? I wasn't very stoical about it. You know, seriously, I wasn't. I wasn't living to a stoic philosophy at that point in time.
Mhm.
And but fortunately, you know, Claire and I worked out a way between us talking of actually addressing it. And you know, I don't know if I've mentioned it to you before, but how important it was for us to decide Claire to go part-time in the business
Mhm.
and spend more time in her family's commercial property business,
Mhm.
and with a husband who was in the family commercial property business at that time,
Mhm.
and me to move to Scarborough, if you like, and we gave up the staff and the big offices that we had and all that kind of thing, and started carving out, starting again. But it was all to get busy at the things that we actually loved doing.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
God, you know, if I hadn't been in a partnership, I'd have probably just ended up in a sulk.
Yeah.
Did if I hadn't had Claire to bounce it, this
Yeah.
horrible situation we were in, where
Mhm.
you know we had a pretty decent sized business, but we weren't enjoying. I think Michael Earn had the same thing, didn't he, with his
Mhm.
branding agency, if you like.
Mhm.
But we weren't getting any happiness out of it.
Mhm.
Um, But I was lucky. I had her to talk to, but and how good it was that I did have her talk, but how good it was for Claire, because you know it allowed her and her husband to travel the world for
Mhm.
10, 11 years, and of course then he died.
Mhm.
Do you
Mhm.
know, it's in his mid-50s.
Mhm.
And they wouldn't have had all that time enjoying themselves and being happy in various things if I
Mhm.
hadn't had somebody to work with. And then we'd gone back to basics, which is what you said, doing
Mhm.
something busy. And the thing about happypreneurship is, I must re-emphasize this time and time again. You can be a happypreneur in a job,
Yes. Yeah.
because it's about being creative and about being enterprising, and it's about being you and being authentic, if you like.
Yeah.
And lots of other people get their happypreneurship out of a side hustle. So
Mhm.
then, they have a job and they have a side hustle. And there's a lot of people going out there now, and I've always said there's nothing wrong in having a part-time job or full-time job and an enterprise as well. The
Mhm.
enterprise itself might give you a bit more pleasure than the job, but you can still be enterprising at work and get a lot of happiness out of that too.
Yeah. No, I think that's important as well, because I don't think people realize that it's either, well, if you've only ever been in a job, the idea of self-employment seems like another world away. I almost think it's a bit like Harry Potter, Diagon Alley. Do you know Diagon Alley?
Yeah, yeah, I
Like,
do.
you've got this sort of parallel universe where,
Yeah, absolutely.
but once you step into it, it's like, oh wow, there's all these like people just like me, these wizards
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
look at all the muggles over there, all the such
yeah,
muggles and the wizards, right? But there's a lot of people who are self-employed, right? That you don't realize until you step into that world, right? But you can step back out of that world as well,
yeah,
and like you say, you can be fully self-employed, or you can be employed with a side hustle. You can do something as Emma Jones used to talk about, the 5 to 9ers, people who had businesses on the evenings and weekends.
yeah,
And you say it's just a different side to your life that you might never grow it beyond a certain level, but still get a lot of fulfillment and enjoyment from it. But as you know, I'm just about to make that shift again after 5.5
yeah,
years being
absolutely.
self-employed. I'm about to move back
Next
into
exciting
employment.
chapter. Yeah,
Yeah,
great.
yeah, and really, I need to do it,
Yeah,
and I've scratched that itch of self-employment. I feel like I've taken what I was doing as far as I could.
yeah,
Um, in truth, I was probably running it like a social enterprise. I wasn't running it to get rich and make lots of money. And COVID has meant that it's not really a viable business as it was.
Yeah.
I'm making some money. I'm still making some money through repositioning the NewcastleStarterWeek.com website and having all the social media channels and YouTube channel and some advertising and some referral revenue.
Yeah.
But it's not what it was because I'm not able to do the big events. And it's not enough for what I personally need for me and my kids.
Yeah.
And also my ambitions for the future. I want to, if I can, I want to start doing some small investments or philanthropic donations to small businesses.
Right.
And I couldn't do that if I kept doing what I'm doing now. So I'm changing. I'm going into full-time employment, and I'm going to keep my business running in my spare time. Alongside that,
Perfect.
it's like a side hustle, but it's just going to keep ticking over alongside it.
And of course, that's we're both big fans of Eric Ries, aren't we? And Lean Startup and various things. And I think that if you think that you've got to that point where okay, well, this is what I can do in self-employment. I've been doing that for 5 years, and I've been trying to make ends meet and that. But I now want to move on to doing these kind of things, and that's great. But I'm going to keep the stuff I love doing that I'm proud of as a side hustle. It's kind of like at the end of position, you've got that, and that should be the position at the beginning as well. In actual fact, you should create your minimal viable product or minimal viable service while you're in a job.
Yeah.
That is so important in terms of being a happypreneur. A lot of people, because they don't do the test trading and start a business without a clue as to whether they can get enough customers and enough money coming in to make ends meet, don't they, Paul?
Yeah.
And that's, and it's like so important for people to realize that having more than one income stream. I mean, I know you must have friends and colleagues that have to do, in order to make ends meet, they'll have a side hustle and they might have 2 or 3 part-time jobs. Yeah, I know somebody with a craft ale shop, if you like, and he's been doing. I know the founders, every one of the founders of Excluded UK, the original founders, have had to do something totally different in order to build themselves up again. And some of them, one of them, had 2 delivery jobs going. You know how tough those delivery jobs are, for Amazon's people like that, and Just Eat and all that. Yeah. But he had to do that in order to start a new business that was going to be viable during the pandemic. Yeah. So it's terribly important that people don't buy into this all in. Everything's got to come from this one channel, or else you don't believe in it. Of course, you believe in it, but money is difficult to come by, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, one of the things a lot of people talk about the book, or they talk about Simon Sinek. His book Start With Why.
Why? Yeah.
No, a lot of people talk about it, but they've not actually read the book, right? Well, I've read the book, and there's a video. If you don't want to read the book, just watch. I think the video is only 11 minutes long, right? So I've watched the video a long time ago, and then I finally read the book earlier this year. And I read, sometimes you read something at the right time, and I when I read it, it is all about understanding why you're doing what you do, and I had been thinking a lot about, okay, why am I doing what I'm doing? And actually, I realized that it doesn't matter what I do, whether it's a job, self-employed. The reason I do it and what I enjoy the most is signposting, matchmaking, doing introductions, helping people fulfill their potential, helping businesses grow, start or grow.
Yeah.
And all those things, it doesn't matter how I do it. I want to be useful. I want to leverage my skills and knowledge and expertise and network. So the role I'm moving into does that. It allows me to make use of all my skills and all my experience and all my network because I'm moving into, as you know, I'm moving into IT tech recruitment,
Yeah, it's great.
which isn't something I'd thought of before, but actually, when I talk about it to the firm Nigel Wright Recruitment, it's a perfect fit for who I am and what I enjoy doing. So I am really excited about
And all those skills you've talked about, they'll all fit into this new job. So that's absolutely fantastic. It is a perfect match. And you did put one of the top 10 values of a happypreneur in there, because you used the words "be useful."
Yeah, exactly.
I know it's a very simple thing, but it's incredibly important. All happypreneurs, be useful. They're all useful. They're all, they only get the fulfillment and the contentment out of that. I mean, the Greeks, that gave us Stoicism and everything. It doesn't matter which branch of philosophy you go. All philosophy has come from the Greek view that virtue was the most important thing in life, and there's a lot of be useful in virtue kind of thing, and so yeah, I mean, I think that's tremendously important. It's great. So you've got the why is that you've got a bag full of skills that you can actually use in something that will actually it is creative and it is enterprising as well, that actually brings some money in for you, and that's it. It's as simple as that, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's great. They came to me because I got the job because of everything I've been doing through my own business
Great.
over the last 5.5 years and beyond, and so all the skills that I've built up have got me into a position to get this role. But just quickly on books, Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, he's got a good book called The Startup of You.
Right.
That's well worth reading, because it is all about getting into your head that you think of yourself as a startup and building your skills and building your network and expertise.
Yeah, that's right.
Wherever you go, whatever role you do, whatever job, whatever company you work for or with, that will always go with you. And that's one of the reasons I've been able to move into these different positions, or why I've been able to advise companies like at the smallest level all the way up to the biggest level, because I have got all this. I've adopted that mindset, I think, of thinking of myself as a startup, like an entity that's always learning, never stop learning, and building up skills and expertise.
And that's one of the important things that of schools, really, promoting enterprise, isn't it, at the earliest possible age, from 5 or 6 years old, kind of things, seriously. And enterprising skills will see you good right throughout your life, whether you're in a job or you're raising money for charities, or you just want to do good or be useful. That enterprise skill set is like, oh, it's fantastic. I mean, one of the reasons that we did use my riches to rags story is because of the fact that it was many years later, after we'd started our business, that I realized that I'd been enterprising all my life because of my parents' business, and the fact that when they left me in the office, kind of thing, the one rule was never let somebody who rings the phone leave, go off the phone without you being able to keep the conversation going in some kind of way after it. In other words, I couldn't say my father or my mother was out, or at a meeting or whatever. I had to say, what are you interested in? And I had to negotiate so that, we'll be back to you with a quotation within, and these were big companies, Ford, Metal Box, Bachelor's Peas, Bird's Eye, these were large company buyers. But at 17, I had to learn to be enterprising, if you like, and that skill, it's like what we say about looking after customers, doesn't it? Your greatest opportunity is often when you've made a cock up. because the way you sort that cock up out,
Mm,
which is enterprising, gives something extra of value, whatever, will probably create a customer for life.
mhm.
And that's something the big companies can never. Enterprising behavior is something the big companies don't actually understand. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah.
They say, so, oh, you can give them a little bit up to £3 worth or something like that. Or do you know what I mean? And they've got like, whereas you can actually say, well, how about I get in the car now with a new one and deliver it to you straight away? Does that make sense? So
Mhm,
it's like,
mhm.
yeah. Yeah, so enterprise is like tremendously important at all ages. It doesn't matter whether you ever run a business or not. It's that skill set that you've talked about there is really important.
Yeah, no, that's great. And then like, thinking on your feet, like you said, like being entrepreneurial, innovative, and creative, and yeah, they've obviously put you in good stead for the rest of your life. Those skills that you learned at such a young age.
Yeah.
Well, if people want to learn more about from your early experiences and your later experiences, do you want to hold up your book again?
Yeah, we'll do. There we go.
It's all in there. So, The Happipreneur, Why Microbiz Matters. Encourage everybody to buy a copy. If you're a school or a college or a university or an office, and you're into personal development or team development, buy a bulk of load of copies.
Thank you.
Yeah, don't just buy
Well,
one.
it is for everybody. And as we said right at the beginning of this show, all my royalties go to excluded UK boost grants as well. So you'll be doing somebody else a good turn as well by getting it. But it's as best we could, and thankfully the reviews have been quite good over 2 years to create the new Small is Beautiful and a guide for enterprising people. So Schumacher created a book called Small is Beautiful, Economics as if People Mattered, and ours is Enterprise as if People Cared. And I think it's appropriate for everybody. You don't have to run your own business to learn something from all the great people that have taught me how to be a happypreneur. They're all in the book, aren't they? And you've met a lot of them as well, haven't you?
Yeah,
Which is
there's
great.
some amazing people in there, and but the best person is you, Tony. I'm so pleased that we met and continue to support each other.
Blushing.
Um,
Yeah,
so I'm going to share some links underneath the video, so that people can quickly get your book and they can donate to the Excluded campaign and the Macmillan Cancer Trust as well. And anything else, if you want to share any links underneath the video, and obviously together we'll comment and we'll share on LinkedIn, and it'll be on Twitter as well. And if anybody watching this enjoys it, which I'm sure they will, encourage them to share it with their network as well, so that as many people get to see it as possible.
Fabulous. Thank you for a lovely Friday afternoon, Paul.
Yeah, no, it's been
and good luck for work on Monday. I hope
I know,
it goes really well. So
first day of the new job. No,
I'll have a few beers for you on Sunday night.
Thank you. It's been a bit of a funny day. I mean, Friday, as you know, like Friday for me, I always kind of theme it as keep going or pivot. So it's always a bit of a review day for me anyway. But it does feel like it's my last day as a full-time self-employed person for a little while, right? So I've had a lovely day. I've spent the day doing things that I really enjoy doing. I've had meetings with people. I've been doing work that I've enjoyed doing. I've been doing the Founders Friday. I've done some videos myself. I've been sharing other people's videos. I've done this live interview with you. This is a perfect way to end today. So thank you.
Well, I've really enjoyed it as well. Thank you, Paul. Cheers, mate. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you.